Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. Did we solve all the problems of the world yet? Unlikely. It's good morning.
I don't know what the deal is.
There we go.
We are.
Hello.
Thing 1, 2. All right, you should be able
I can hear you.
All right. Let's get the microphone on, get the cameras on.
What are you looking for?
Hair. All right, man. Eyes work and everything, so I've got my headlines.
You wanted to either move your camera or scoot over to the left? I think scooting is probably easier. Yeah. There you go.
Scoot. Okay.
Let's get going. Today on Before Coffee, U.S. expected to provide cluster bombs to the Ukraine.
Haiti needs intervention. Immediate attention, says UN chief.
Why are people dying at sea? They are fleeing disasters that we once called biblical and now call normal. This is an opinion piece by Fatima Bhutto.
Oops, she did it again. Brittney Spears is slapped by security for tapping 7'5" Victor Wembanyama on the shoulder. Leave Brittney alone.
A huge relief. Scientists react to hopes of the UK rejoining the EU Horizon scheme.
Too short. Items for 4-Story Friday. Life imitates Monty Python again as tourist defaces Rome Coliseum, and man missing for 8 years was living in Houston with his mom the whole time. Today, help us muddle through life in 40 or so minutes of comedy gold on today, July 7th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
All right, let's go ahead and read my first story, which is all about serious stuff. And you were talking about funny stuff. Let's go.
UN is serious.
Liani Xiaofeng in Washington is reporting that the U.S. is expected to provide some cluster bombs to Ukraine. Human Rights Watch has called on Russia and Ukraine to stop using cluster bombs and urged the U.S. to not supply the munitions to Kyiv. This is why I clicked the story, by the way, because I'm like, cluster bombs? Huh? On people? And reports that Biden administration is poised to include the controversial weapon in a new military aid package. Russian and Ukraine forces have used cluster bombs, which break apart in the air and release a large number of smaller bomblets across a wide area. The bomblets are designed to detonate on hitting the ground, but do not always explode, posing a risk to civilians for years afterwards. The weapons, first used in the Second World War, which should already key you in on things not to be doing, was banned in more than 120 nations under the Convention of Cluster Munitions in 2008. Russia, Ukraine, and US all declined to sign that treaty because, hey, it's nice to be contrarian, I guess. Kyiv has urged members of the US Congress to press the White House to approve sending over cluster bombs. The US officials say cluster bombs would be effective for Ukraine against Russian forces in strong defensive positions. The White House said on Thursday that providing the cluster munitions to Ukraine is under active consideration, and U.S. officials told Reuters that the administration is expected to announce the new weapons aid package that will include these weapons on Friday, which is today. Ukrainian and Russian forces have used cluster munitions that caused numerous civilian deaths and serious injuries. Human Rights Watch said in a report on Thursday, calling on both sides to immediately stop using the inherently indiscriminate weapons. U.S. officials have claimed that any munitions provided to Ukraine would have to reduce dud rate, meaning that they will have far fewer unexploded rounds that could later result in unintended civilian deaths. Ukraine fired cluster munition rockets into Russia-controlled areas in and near the eastern Ukraine city of Izium last year, causing many casualties among Ukrainian civilians. The rights group said, citing interviews with more than 100 residents, witnesses, and local emergency personnel. The Ukrainian attacks killed at least 8 civilians and wounded at least 15 civilians in Izium, it said. The group had previously reported that Russia's use of cluster bombs in Ukraine resulted in the deaths of scores of civilians, and the United Nations Human Rights Council also documented the use of such bombs by both sides. Cluster munitions used by Russia and Ukraine are killing civilians now and will continue to do so for many years, said Mary Wareham, acting arms director of Human Rights Watch. Both sides should immediately stop using them and not try to get more of these indiscriminate weapons. Transferring cluster bombs to Ukraine would inevitably cause long-term suffering for civilians, the group said. It warned that the use of cluster munitions in areas with civilians makes an attack indiscriminate in violation of international humanitarian law, and possibly a war crime. But as we all know, the US can't be tried for a war crime, because if they are, they can bomb The Hague. And I don't want them to bomb The Hague, so...
USA. Sorry.
Okay. Anyways, let's go on to your next story.
This is actually interesting because this is what Washington should name their sports team, right? The Washington Cluster Bombs.
Hell yeah.
That's a great name, right?
I mean,
Washington
the Packers are named after
Commanders.
a meat packing company, right? So...
Washington Commanders, right? People are already shortening that to Washington Commies, right? So why don't we just call them the Washington Cluster Bombs? Because that's what we're really in. We're in the death and destruction business, and when it really comes down to it. Okay, on our story, this is from the PBS NewsHour. Edith M. Lederer of Associated Press actually wrote the story. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called Thursday for a robust international force to combat Haiti's armed gangs and restore security in the impoverished nation, saying that UN experts estimate that Haiti needs up to 2,000 additional anti-gang police officers is no exaggeration. Stressing that the UN is not calling for military force or political mission, Guterres appealed to the UN Security Council members and potential contributing countries to act now to deploy multinational force to help Haitian National Police defeat and dismantle the gangs. The Caribbean nation has been asking for such a force since last October. The UN chief who visited Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, on Saturday, told reporters that criminal gangs have a stranglehold on the population. The Haitian people are trapped in a living nightmare, and humanitarian conditions are beyond appalling. Nothing ever gets better in Haiti. Guterres spoke ahead of Security Council meeting later on Thursday's report on Haiti and following Wednesday's press conference by the UN independent expert for Haiti, William O'Neill, who concluded a 10-day trip to the country last week. O'Neill estimates that Haiti needs 1,000 to 2,000 international police with expertise in organized criminal gangs and their financing, as well as kidnappings and urban operations. He stressed the quality of the officers is more important than the quantity. O'Neill, an American lawyer who has been working with Haiti for 30 years and helped establish a Haitian National Police in 1995, told reporters, "I have never seen a situation as bad as it is now." Sidebar, my old boss, when we lived in El Paso, Billy, he helped train the Haitian National Police in 1995. Just a little sidebar.
Just you have some connection to this story.
Yeah, him and his buddy Gary went down there and trained the Haitian National Police. They were paid by the U.S. government. Secretary General Guterres asked about O'Neill's estimate, and the right number of international force needs to be assessed by it. Should be a meaningful number, and that he believes the UN experts' numbers do not reflect any exaggeration. He added that the police also need financing, training, and equipment. Guterres called for simultaneous action on 3 fronts: restoring security, working toward a political solution that restores democratic institutions, and addressing urgent humanitarian needs. He called on donors to respond quickly to the UN appeal for $720 million to help more than 3 million people, which is only 23% funded. The UN chief said that these 3 steps are vital to break Haiti's cycle of suffering and create a path out of the current crisis. The gangs have grown in power since July 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse and are now estimated control up to 80% of the capital. The surge in killings, rapes, and kidnappings has led to violent uprising by civilian vigilante groups that have killed nearly 200 people since April and are fighting against suspected gang members. O'Neill said he met with senior Haitian National Police leaders, including the Inspector General, and they told him they are committed to seriously looking at the integrity and competence of all officers for evidence of misconduct, abuse of power, criminal activity, and collusion with the gangs. He said the Inspector General told him 80 officers have been suspended and are under investigation for misconduct of criminal activity that police have participated in vigilante justice movement called Blockale is also being investigated. O'Neill says he plans to meet council members in other countries active in Haiti over coming weeks to discuss his visit and recommendations, including an immediate arms embargo as well as deployment of international police experts. Your story. Oh, and the other sidebar, I remember my boss, Billy, going to Haiti back in the 90s, and he had been everywhere in the world, almost completely, legitimately everywhere in the world. And he said, that is the fourth world country he's been to. Your story. Right, and they were cut off from all aid, so they started out with that, in that hole, because, oh no, slaves can't have a country, let's not help them. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead. Oh.
Muted. Damn it, I muted myself. Here we go.
Am I? Repeat it?
No, just myself. I just muted myself. Many of those who drowned on in Greece last month were escaping environmental crisis in Pakistan. Before the Adriana, an overcrowded fishing trawler left by Libya on the 9th of June, Sajjad Yusuf spoke to his father. His family had begged him not to make the treacherous journey from Pakistan to Europe, but Yusuf wouldn't listen. He wanted to leave the desolation of life in Pakistan far, far behind. It was hard. The journey would be tough. He knew that his family had taken out loans and millions of rupees to buy him a space on that teeming trawler, and Yusuf was ready to take his chance. Most of the 750 people on board the trawler were Pakistani. They were migrants fleeing poverty and lack of opportunity, but also the ravages of climate emergency, which is felt acutely in Pakistan. The men and women who risked their lives on the Mediterranean were escaping floods, droughts, glacial melt, crop damage, and locust plagues, all of which Pakistan has suffered in recent years. It is a cruel fate to endure disaster after disaster. They were once described as biblical, but have since become so mundane, everyday occurrences. The Pakistanis shared their fatal journey with other men and women abandoned by the world, Afghans, Syrians, and Palestinians. The Adriana stood stationary in that deadly sea for 15 hours, waiting to be saved, yet nothing and no one came. The authorities did nothing. Greek Coast Guard said that men on the boat refused help. Of the 750 people on board, about 100 are thought to have survived. No women and children are listed among the survivors so far. The climate crisis bleeds into everything, and it will bleed into more. It is a migrant crisis. Climate shocks will fuel the wars of future as water and resources become scarce. Already, according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, disasters displaced 3 to 10 times more people than conflict or war worldwide. Another study by UN's Institute for Environment and Human Security estimates that there could be as many as 1 billion climate migrants by 2050. It is the shadow behind the poverty crisis across the world and the cost of living crisis. It is a feminist crisis. The UN estimates that 80% of people globally displaced by climate emergencies are women. One of the many unfolding tragedies of what we've done to the planet is that we'll struggle to fight it. What strategy can be conceived to fight floods and droughts simultaneously? It feels daunting to defend against an onslaught of too much and too little all at once. But this is what our reckless and thoughtlessness of burning fossil fuels has wreaked. While Pakistan is still recovering from the super flood that emerged a third of the country last summer, a flood that decimated staple crops, killed 1 million livestock, and wiped away thousands of miles of roads and homes, Europe is facing a drought crisis. At the time many countries are drowning, France was facing its worst drought on record. At the beginning of March last year, its water reserves fell to 80% below normal levels. Too much and too little all at once. The glaciers in Hindu Kush, home to the world's tallest mountains, are melting at an unprecedented speed. Recent reports from Nepal-based organizations found that the melted 65% faster between 2010 and 2019 than in the previous decade. Advancing thawing will endanger the lives and livelihoods of 2 billion people downstream of the majestic mountains. Meanwhile, Barcelona's reservoirs are running dry after 32 months of drought across Catalonia. This year is set to be the hottest ever recorded, thanks to the combination of the burning fossil fuels and the return of El Nino, which we talked about, I believe, yesterday. This is the future we made. So when celebrities and footballers pose for selfies in their vulgar private jets, remember their names. They are not modern-day Neros, fiddling while Rome burns. They are vandals with the matches. When big oil boasts that it doubled its already obnoxious profits, remember the numbers. The oil companies have not only destroyed the only home we have for profit, but they have paid nothing in return. No reparations, nothing to offset the destructions they have caused. We can use as many paper straws as our heart desires, and we can recycle and travel by train until the end of time, which will be in about 30 years as far as I can see. But unless oil CEOs act, we cannot start fighting to save the planet. The Climate Accountability Institute has called for fossil fuel corporations to pay for damage they've caused. 100 of the world's leading economists have signed a letter ahead of the Paris climate finance talks calling for a 1.5% tax to be levied on the world's richest people to help limit global temperature rises to 1.5 C above the pre-industrial levels. For argument's sake, they calculated that a 2% tax on billionaires' wealth would bring 2.5 TN, I guess that's trillion towards paying for climate-related damage in the world's poorest countries, but that's nowhere near enough. Remember also that the richest 1% are responsible for double the carbon emissions of the poorest half of the country's world's population. Of course, they can afford to pay a 1.5% tax. They can afford to pay a 5% even, a 10%. There is no end of money in private finance. There is money in public coffers too. And yet, the week we were told the UK government plans to drop its £11.6 billion climate pledge. This is not a climate dispatch. It is just a recounting of some of the terrors that month of June brought us. 1 month, that's it. And it truly is the stuff of nightmares. We are at the mercy of time, and simply put, we have none left. I don't know what writing can do, but at the very least can provide us a reckoning, a space in which we can refuse to live and die this way. It can remind us that we are not powerless if we can't gather and gather often against the excess of demand action to save the planet, life on Earth, and ourselves. It's this way, the Turkish poet Nazim Hikmet wrote. Being captured is beside the point. The point is not to surrender. Yet again, this is a article from Fatima Bhutto, a opinion piece, who is the author of books including The Runaways and New Kings of the World, and is currently teaching a class on how to write about climate issues. I can do some video editing, yeah.
This is where you can insert the "Leave Brittney Alone" video. So
leave Brittney alone, please.
You bastards are lucky she even performs for you. This is from ESPN. Las Vegas, San Antonio Spurs rookie Victor Wembanyama said Thursday he believes Britney Spears grabbed him from behind as he was walking into a restaurant at Las Vegas casino, and that the security detail he was with pushed the pop star away. Wembanyama said he was told that the Spears was the person who grabbed him until he wasn't told that Spears was the person who grabbed him until hours later. Spears filed a police report, claiming she was struck by a security guard while trying to get the attention of Wembanyama, according to TMZ, which first reported alleged details of the incident that took place Wednesday night near a restaurant near the Aria Hotel and Casino. TMZ said Spears noticed Wembanyama and tapped him on the shoulder in an effort to get his attention for a photo, and that she wound up being struck in the face and having glasses knocked off. Again, tapped on the shoulder. I just want you to picture the height of a man, 7'5", and how high his shoulders must be, and how tall you must be to tap him on the shoulder. I would think you would have to jump to tap him on the shoulder. Or maybe she just tapped him on the arm and thought it was his shoulder. Anyway, Spears addressed the incident in her Instagram story Thursday afternoon, saying, "It was super embarrassing to share with the world, but it's out there already." Spears refuted Wembanyama's account that she had grabbed him, saying she had just simply tapped him on the shoulder, and that the security backhanded me in the face without looking back in front of the crowd, nearly knocking me down and causing my glasses off my face. That's what it says. I have yet to get public apologies from player and hope his security or their association. I hope they will. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department issued a statement to the Los Angeles Times saying officers responded to a battery investigation at that address without specifying any of individual names. The statement went on to say that no arrests or citations have been issued, and that no further details will be provided at this time. Wembanyama said security advised him not to stop for anyone as he walked into the restaurant, mindful that pausing could cause a stir and allow a crowd to build. Just a reminder, this man was just drafted first in the NBA draft, about to be a multimillionaire, and he stands up from a crowd because he's 7'5". Something did happen a little bit when I was walking with some security from this team to some restaurant, Wembanyama said. We were there in the hall. There was a lot of people. Some people were calling at me, obviously. There was one person who was calling me, but we talked before with security. I couldn't stop. That person was calling me, "Sir, sir," and that person grabbed me from behind. Wembanyama said, I didn't see what happened because I was walking straight and didn't stop. The person grabbed me from behind. I'm not on my shoulder. She grabbed me from behind. I just know that security pushed her away. I don't know how much force, but security pushed her away. I didn't stop to look so I could walk and enjoy a nice dinner. Wembanyama said he was unaware the situation had made headlines until Thursday. I did not know for a couple of hours, but when I came back to the hotel, I thought it was no big deal, and then the security of the Spurs told me it was Brittney Spears. Wembanyama said at first I was like, "You're joking." But yeah, it turns out it was Brittney Spears. I never saw her face. I just kept walking straight. Spears said she was swarmed by people all the time, including Wednesday night, but that her security team didn't hit any of them, and she urged people in the public eye to set an example and treat all people with respect. Oh, sorry. I had to pause. Wembanyama will make his NBA Summer League debut with the Spurs on Friday night in Las Vegas against the Charlotte Hornets. He signed some autographs for fans in Aria on Wednesday night and did the same for a small number of fan onlookers as he entered a local high school for practice with the Spurs on Thursday morning. So, I don't know if we care too much about this, but it's a fun story. Anyway. Your story? That's it, man.
Okay.
Nothing serious. It's just Brittney good and getting attention for herself. Like
people getting weird. Smacked in the face for small women getting smacked in the face. Very reasonable.
Enough to make me want to turn fanboy and make a video. Leave her alone. He's just trying to please you bastards. Go ahead.
Okay. In science news, this is from Lisa O'Carroll in Brussels and Ian Sample in London. Scientists, including the physicist Brian Cox, have reacted with a mixture of caution, anger, and relief that the UK appears to set to rejoin the EU flagship £85 billion Horizon Science Research Programme after a protracted Brexit row. Sources indicate that an announcement could come in days, possibly next week, when Rishi Sunak is scheduled to meet the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at NATO summit. A deal would end a 2.5-year standoff after the EU refused to ratify the UK's membership of Horizon Europe in a row over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Cox, a TV presenter and professor of particle physics at the University of Manchester, said rejoining would come as a huge relief to everyone in science, industry, and universities across the UK. But the other expressed anger, saying that the UK government still did not understand how much science benefited from the program and appeared to be insisting on a financial formula that meant the UK did not end up as a net contributor to the program. I find it pathetic. The UK has been a net receiver all these years. It confirms that Sunak has not understood how important it is to be a loyal partner and be focused on research. Bookkeeping is not very helpful. One should also calculate the value of knowledge to generations, said Professor Bart de Strooper, former director of the UK Dementia Research Institute at the University of College London. He cited the damage of scientific relationship that stemmed from the UK's removal from the program. To begin, a deep distrust with the European colleagues regarding the engagement and reliability of the UK. I think that there is still a good chance that it's getting repaired, but will take time, said de Strooper. Professor Karsten Welsh, a physicist at the University of Liverpool, who lost leadership of the £2.6 million research project on a novel plasma generator that could be used in cancer treatment when the UK lost membership, said it would be absolutely fantastic news to return to Horizon Europe. It would be a gigantic relief. It would mean that the politicians would have thankfully listened to the scientists, and what changed was that they saw over the entire period we have been out that we need to collaborate international, he said. He had to hand over the leadership of his Horizon project to an Italian university, as under the rules, only member states or associate member states could be beneficiaries. Professor Andre Hem, a Nobel laureate from the University of Manchester, said, "Without knowing the details, it's very difficult to either celebrate or mourn, whatever the outcome will eventually be. However, we all, whether Remainers or Brexiteers, must celebrate that the UK government has at long last taken pragmatic steps and started building a network relationship with science in Europe." Okay, it's just a bunch of negotiations between the EU and the UK have centered on the financial formula to return to the fold. The UK argued that the original plan to base London's contribution on its 2019 success rates in Horizon Europe was no longer relevant or fair. Data shows the UK was awarded a €959 million or £819.5 million in Horizon grants in 2019, but just 0.18 million in 2023. That's a lot less. That's a way less. Sources say the final deaths details concern the correction mechanism in place, where the value of grants awarded to the UK to be less or more than its annual contribution. A spokesperson for Sunak said a deal has not been agreed, and his aim was to find a way that produces the best value for the UK science and research and also for taxpayers. That is what the Prime Minister will consider at the appropriate time. The European Commission said discussions were ongoing. There was no further comment to make. Some scientists expressed nervousness that the talks would still go awry. "I dare not to hope. I just want this to be over. It's been so tortured for so long. I don't dare hope. I just want this to be..." Oh, sorry, I already read that. Said Mike Galsworthy, a co-founder of scientists in the EU. So everyone's hopeful, but also ready to just like, oh, there goes my, world-ending scientific research I wanted to do. Somebody else has to do it because I'm not allowed. I don't get the grant money.
Just there's probably some real important thing that money can be used for somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's find out how to feed people, man. Anyway, that's the story.
Yep, that's it.
Well, you can cue another film clip. Maybe if you have the Life of Brian graffiti scene, if you remember that, where the John Cleese is showing him how to the Roman guards giving him Roman lessons while he's doing the graffiti.
Romanes eunt Domus. People call Romanes, they go the house.
It says Romans go home.
No, it doesn't.
If you got a copy of that, cue it. Well, maybe we can find it later. And two stories for 4-Story Friday. This is two short stories. The first one, English tourist filmed carving into Rome's Coliseum, claims ignorance of museum's age. I don't think it's carving. I think he was using a spray can. An English tourist who was filmed... Well, I mean, he was carving. An English tourist who was filmed carving a note into the Coliseum in Rome has penned a letter apologizing for defacing the nearly 2,000-year-old amphitheater, claiming that he was unaware that the world-famous landmark was ancient. The letter, addressed to Rome Mayor Roberto Guterres, was published on Wednesday in Il Messaggero, a Italian newspaper based in Rome. In the letter, the man identified by his lawyers, 27-year-old Daniela Dimitrov, wrote, "I admit the deepest embarrassment that it was only after what regrettably happened that I learned of the antiquity of the monument." Dimitrov, who faces potential prison time and a hefty fine, went on to say that he's aware of the gravity and act committed. "I'd like sending my heartfelt apologies to the Italians and the whole world for the damage done to an asset that is, in fact, the heritage of all humanity." Completed by Roman Emperor Titus in 80 AD, the Colosseum became famous for gladiators who would engage in combat, often to death, for the amusement of tens of thousands of spectators. Dimitrov was a man seen using a key to etch Ivan Pleshali, 23, his name and the name of his significant other, into the internal wall of the monument in a video shared on YouTube. Recorded by an outraged onlooker, the video of this stunt, titled Expletive Tourist, car's name in Coliseum in Rome, I think it's Asshole Tourist or Shitbag Tourist or whatever, was unloaded on June 23rd to YouTube before being widely shared across social media, eliciting condemnation. The video also alerted police to the vandalism, and Italian officials soon vowed to punish the man responsible. "I consider it very serious, unworthy sign of a great incivility that a tourist defaces one of the most famous places in the world, a historical heritage site such as the Colosseum, to carve the name of his fiancée," the country's culture minister, Gennaro Siguiliano, tweeted on June 26, along with a video of the incident as it first went viral. A 5-day search led Italian police to Dimitrov, who said they traced to his home in Britain, according to the Associated Press. Vandalizing the Colosseum is an act of fine that carries up to $15,000 and 5 years in prison, the agency reported. However, Dimitrov's lawyer, Alexander Maria Torelli, told Il Messaggero he is hoping for leniency as he sought to downplay the defacement. "This boy is a prototype of a foreigner who frivolously believes that anything is allowed in Italy," Torelli told the newspaper, "even the type of act which their own countries would be severely punished." So yeah.
Finished! Right. Now don't do it again.
Graffiti on a hallowed ground where people would murder each other. So, yeah, it's hallowed ground, but then again, it was barbarism. Okay. And second story, a short story, Rudy Farias, a Houston man reported missing in 2015, was living with his mother the whole time. Okay, here we go with this one. Rudy Farias, a Texas man who was found alive more than 8 years after he was reported missing as a Houston teenager, was living with his mother the whole time, Houston police said. At a news conference Thursday, the Houston Police Department said Farias was reported missing by his mother in 2015, but returned the next day. During 8 years, police received tips and leads that indicated Farias was not missing. Lieutenant Christopher Zamora said in the news conference, "Many of these facts included contact and statements with relatives, friends, and medical professionals." From 2015 to 2023, police said Farias spoke with officers, but used fake names and dates of birth, which misled officers. Sounds like these officers did not want to do any follow-up for some reason. Both Janie, Rudy's mother, and Rudy himself gave fictitious names while interacting with various police officers. Zamora said Janie continued to deceive police, remaining adamant that Rudy was still missing. Police said Farias and his mother were interviewed Wednesday. The investigation is ongoing. Police said Farias just stayed with his mother by choice, Zamora said Thursday. Janie Santana, Farias' mother, alleged that her nephew was the person's friends and family were... Starting over. Janie Santana, Farias' mother, alleged that her nephew was the person's friends and family were seeing at the house. Police said it wasn't true. The Texas Center for Missing shared the statement on behalf of the family when Farias was found. "We want to thank the media and public for all their support. My son, Rudy Farias, was found on Thursday, June 29th, after being missing for 8 years. Currently, we do not have any information on Rudy's case. We don't know what is his time of recovery. A good Samaritan located him unresponsive and immediately called 911. My son, Rudy, is receiving care he needs to overcome the trauma, but at this time, he is nonverbal and not able to communicate with us. We ask you for privacy during this difficult time. We'll share more details when Rudy continues to heal. Police said the district attorney has declined any charges at this time for making false reports. Investigators have reached out to Adult Protective Services, Zamora said. We've also connected Rudy with victim services to ensure that he has a method to recover. Zamora said Farias did not disclose allegations of sexual abuse in interviews with authorities. If their disclosure made, we will continue to investigate. Being missing is not a crime, so the detectives had no lawful means of probable cause to issue a search warrant for the residence, which was searched several times. Houston police said Farias was found wounded June 29th outside a church at about 10 p.m. Local time. Zamora said Farias refused transportation to the hospital, but his mother took him to the hospital later that day. Farias is 25 years old. He was 17 when he was reported missing. Police said Rudy Farias IV was reported missing on March 7, 2015. He vanished after walking his dogs in the neighborhood northeast Houston. He returned home the next day. Janie Santana's neighbors said Rudy Farias had been living with his mother for 8 years. After news broke that Farias was found, Santana's neighbors, who never knew Farias was reported missing, said Farias has been living with Santana for years. Local outlet KTRK reported. Keisha Ross, who lives in the same street as Santana, according to civil court records obtained by KTRK, told the station Farias would hang out with her family often. She used to come by my garage, chill with my cousins and sons and daughter. That boy has never been missing. Houston Police spokesman John Cannon told USA Today Wednesday that Farias' family contacted investigators in 2018. The family said Farias was staying on the property of one of the family members, Cannon said. Cannon said detectives went to the residence, did not find Farias after searching parts of the property that were allowed to have access. The missing person investigation remained open because the detectives were not able to find Farias. So, they interviewed him several times. He gave them fake names, so on and so forth. Very confusing. He was never missing, bottom line. Your story.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
completely, he's the invisible man. He's actually the invisible man.
Yeah. This is
All
baffling
right.
to me. The police say
In
that was
culture
him. Yeah.
news, let's
Okay.
look at the Netherlands government returning 478 works of art to Indonesia and Sri Lanka. At the request of the Indonesian and Sri Lankan governments, the Netherlands is returning hundreds of cultural objects to those countries. The State Secretary Gune Usla believes that these objects ended up in the Netherlands unjustly during the colonial period, for example through robbery or coercion. With the return, she follows the advice of the Colonial Collections Committee. There are a total of 478 works. They are now in the collections of the Rijksmuseum and the Museum of World Cultures. Among the works that go back to the countries of origin are the Lombok Treasure, Indonesia, and the Canon of Kandy, Sri Lanka. Usla speaks of a historic moment. Based on the advice of the Colonial Collections Committee, it is the first time that we are returning objects that should never have been in the Netherlands. But we are not just returning objects. We are actually starting a period in which we are more intensively going to cooperate with Indonesia and Sri Lanka. The State Secretary emphasizes that the returns were made after an investigation by experts from all three countries. The committee will still consider more objects. In addition to Indonesia and Sri Lanka, there are also concerns about art from Nigeria. According to the spokesperson for USLU, no requests have been rejected so far, but the committee has not yet received all requests and some require more investigation. One of the requests that has yet to be decided is the Dubious Collection in the Naturalists Museum in Leiden. These are about 40,000 fossils that were excavated in Indonesia at the end of the 19th century by the Dutch researcher Eugene Du Bois. If you know anything about the Naturalists Museum in Leiden, it's basically a place you can go to look at the human body in all ways. Real human bodies. People donated their body to the museum, and basically you can see like lungs and how they look when they're, expanding, or how the heart beats, right? Real people's bodies. Famously, a lot of people obviously don't like it because they lose that, they kind of blur that line between object and non-object, right? So, but it's an interesting museum. I've always wanted to go. In 2020, the cabinet was already advised to return colonial looted art unconditionally if the country of origin requests it. According to the committee, historically injustice from colonial past cannot be undone, but a contribution can be made to readdressing injustices by taking responsibility for that past when dealing with colonial objects. The National Museum of World Cultures also fully supports the committee's advice. Director Marieke van Bommel calls it the start of a very nice process. The museum has a very large collection, at almost 4,500 objects, part of which has provenance that is not neat, and we want to put that right together. She expects many more requests to follow. Van Bommel is not worried about her museum will be empty. It is not the case that all collections have been robbed. It has also simply been purchased. We now have to ensure that there is a recognition and that the injustice is rectified. The objects will go to the National Museum of Indonesia in Jakarta. And then people will go to Jakarta to see the things, instead of to the Netherlands, where, there's a tie, but it's not exactly where you should be going to see those things. So, anyways, that's my short culture and media article here about people, something the British Museum would never do, return art objects to the people that they originally belonged to.
Oh, they might. Okay.
On to this day in history.
This day in history. 1307. King Edward I, otherwise known as Longshanks, of England, died on his way to subdue the new Scottish king, Robert the Bruce. So Longshanks bit the dust, or whatever you want to call it, on this day in 1307. 1438, King Charles VII of France issued the Pragmatic Sanction of Bourges, restricting the rights of the Pope and in many cases making the Pope's jurisdiction subject to the will of the king. In 1770, a Russian fleet destroyed the Ottoman fleet in the Battle of Sesame on the Aegean Sea. And in 1807, the first of the treaties of Tilsit was signed between France and Russia after Napoleon's victory over the Russians and Prussians. In 1906, Satchel Paige, professional baseball pitcher who earned legendary fame during his many years in the Negro Leagues, is believed to have been born on this day in Mobile, Alabama. He lied about his age. In 1928, in Chillicothe, Missouri, pre-sliced bread went on sale. The loaves baked by a local company were cut using a machine designed by Otto Roeder. Therefore, 1928, sliced bread was invented, and nothing has been greater than that since. Anyway, you know the saying? Never mind. 1937, Chinese and Japanese troops clashed near the Marco Polo Bridge outside Beijing, launching the Second Sino-Japanese War and inventing a new game that people play in the pool. 1946, Mother Frances Xavier Cabrini became the first U.S. citizen to be canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. What took you so long? 1978, the Solomon Islands became an independent nation. And we salute you, Solomon Islands. 1978, Czech-born tennis player Martina Navratilova defeated Chris Evert, winner first of 9 Wimbledon single titles. 2005, the London transit system was struck by coordinated suicide bomb attacks that killed 39 people and injured more than 700. That was in 2005. So long ago. It seems like it was yesterday. 2011, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the final film adaptation of J.K. Rowling's popular children's book series, had its world premiere in 2019, led by Megan Rapinoe. The U.S. women's football team defeated the Netherlands to win its 4th World Cup. And a featured event in 1898, Hawaiian Islands were annexed by the United States. In a joint resolution signed by President William McKinley on this date, 1898, paving the way for the islands to become a territory and later a U.S. state. Today's birthdays: Vitsebsk Belarus, was born Marc Chagall, Belarusian French artist, was born this day in 1887. I had a hard time pronouncing that city name. In 1981, Indian cricketer M.S. Dhoni was born. 1980, Michelle Kwan, American ice skater, was born. 1933, David McCullough, American historian, was born. And 1907, American author Robert Heinlein was born. And 1887, Belarusian, we already covered Marc Chagall. We already covered him. And that's all what happened today. And what day is it today? Do you want to know? You must know.
I must know.
What we are recognizing for July 7th, worldwide, well, mostly, it's Global Forgiveness Day. So I forgive you for not knowing that it is Global Forgiveness Day. National Strawberry Sunday. I also forgive you for not bringing me one. I also forgive you for not bringing me chocolate on World Chocolate Day. Oh my God, forgiveness is giving chocolate, strawberries, and National Macaroni Day.
What the hell?
National Day of Rock and Roll. National Dive Bar Day. Well, dive bar and rock and roll go together, for sure. The best music is in dive bars by people that are just barely holding on to their pathetic music careers. It's always the best music. National Father-Daughter Take a Walk Day. All right, we got to do this.
Shit, we have to go
somehow.
for a walk.
Yeah. I'm going to walk over to the bed and plop down. Anyway, that's today. All of the fun stuff you can do today with chocolate. And forgive people. What's better than that? Right? Because people don't feel your hate. They don't feel your hate, man. They don't feel your forgiveness either. But at least you feel it. Anyway.
All right, well, this has been Allison here. Excited to know what I'm having for dinner. Macaroni, chocolate, and strawberry ice cream. So can't wait for that. And we will see you next week to find out how the cluster bombs in Ukraine are going.
And I forgive you all. You are all forgiven. In the famous words of Peter Townsend of The Who, you are all forgiven. And July 27th, 2023 edition. What? July 7th. Oh, this forgiveness is good for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And July 20th, July 7th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
I get what's going on there. You want to say 2023, but your brain skips ahead, and then you say 27th. That's what's happening.
What brain? Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.